Chapter 9. Landho. With more than a little reluctance, Haldir went to the bow so that he could get off the ship. A plank, similar to the one that had been on the boat when they had boarded, was there now, and all the elves were waiting to get off. At the front of the line, to not much surprise, was Sauron, who was still able to pull off some amount of dignity even with his frazzled appearance. Most of the others were giving him a very large berth, except for Elhith, who was standing next to him while the gangway was made ready. Haldir got as close to Elhith as he could without getting within striking distance of Sauron, just as a precaution.
So you go back to the other docks now and pick up more people?
He asked Elhith.
Yes, normally that is what I would do.
Elhith said with a nod.
However, I am to be your guide for a while, therefore I will be getting off with you.
Finally, the plank seemed to be in place, and Elhith walked down it to the dock, closely followed by Sauron and Haldir. The pier was very busy, elves going around everywhere as they loaded or unloaded ships that were anchored. There was something happening everywhere Haldir looked. The docks quickly became a great maze, and Haldir was grateful that Elhith was there to lead him through it. There was definitely too many directions to know in navigating the area. Finally, they came to the end. Sauron instantly became less dark at the sight of solid ground. Just feet from stepping onto the shore, however, two elves came out of nowhere and stopped him, and consequently, Elhith and Haldir. They looked at Sauron in a way that discomforted Haldir. It was one of those looks that made him think that they knew something that he didn't want them to know. Obviously, neither Haldir nor Sauron knew who they were, but Elhith seemed to be acquainted with them. Elhith instantly began to talk to them in his cheerful manner. While it sounded similar to his own, this language was distinctly different from Haldir's, and he couldn't understand it. Yet, by the look on Sauron's face, he had a pretty good idea of what was going on.
Do you know what they are saying?
Haldir whispered in surprise.
Yes, now shh, or else it won't do much good.
He hissed distractedly. Haldir quickly complied, straining his ears to hear, although he knew it wouldn't do him any good. Elhith's mood had quickly turned more serious as the other two elves spoke to him. However, Haldir didn't have a clue as to why. And then there was one word that he could get, or not so much a word as a name: Sauron. At once, the two elves shot Sauron a glance, and Elhith slowly turned and looked at him in surprise. While Elhith seemed to attempt to soak in this information, the two elves continued to talk, their voices slightly louder than before. As they finished, Haldir saw that a look of panic crossed Sauron's face, as it had when he had first caught a glimpse of Tanaquetil.
What did they say?
Haldir asked, not entirely expecting an answer. Sauron opened his mouth a couple of times as though about to say something, but nothing came out. Haldir, waiting patiently for once, was not rewarded as the two elves stepped towards them. One pushed Sauron forward off the pier, and it was at this moment that Haldir saw the swords hanging from their belts. As they walked on, nudging Sauron ahead of them, Elhith stepped over to Haldir.
Why wasn't I told?
He asked as they followed the procession, which was giving Haldir a strange feeling of déjà vu.
I was advised not to tell anybody if it could be helped, seeing as how he isn't very popular.
Were you not told then that I was to keep close to you and him while you are here?
Haldir shook his head.
I was only told that there would be somebody around, but was not given a name.
For once, Elhith seemed to be in a very solemn mood, thinking a lot to himself.
So he's really Sauron, then?
Yes, he really is.
That explains a lot.
Haldir looked at him quizzically.
What do you mean?
There is something unsettling about him, you know? Something doesn't seem quite right.
You mean besides the fact that water freaked him out, he was continually giving everybody dirty looks, and that he fell off the boat at the sight of all this? Besides those things that aren't right about him?
Well, yes. And now all those things that puzzled me fit. It makes sense. I mean, I suppose I'd be scared to come here if I was him, too.
He did it to himself,
Haldir said impatiently.
Yes, I know. And he deserves what's coming to him.
Haldir then remembered that expression Sauron had gotten at the last words of the other elves.
What is coming to him?
He asked, truly curious.
Well, there's been a summon for him. We're going to Valmar. He's to be brought before the Valar.